Today, we're looking at the new AI browsers that are trying to come for the king, Google Chrome. Okay, well, we've surveyed the landscape, done a lot of research, and we've tried out everything that is publicly available. And so we present to you Arnold's tiers, ranking each AI browser. Okay, well, let's start up the tiers. So, first, we have at the very, very bottom the definitely not winning tier. And this one, we've got Brave on here. We've also got Opera. So Brave's browser is called the Brave Leo. Opera. We don't need to spend too much time here. I mean, something dramatic would have to change here for these sorts of browsers to kind of jump up in sort of popularity, deployment, and make a real challenge here. The next tier that we move up to is the legacy tier. And here you've got Safari from Apple as well as Edge from Microsoft. And if we look at Safari first, they don't need to be the first mover here. Right now, they're already the number two browser in the world behind Chrome, but they have almost a billion users that are actively on Safari as a browser. They also really have benefited from this open source development with OpenAI models coming out. The idea that you could just take an open source model and put it directly on an iPhone or on a MacBook so that you could use AI without even connecting to the internet. Or if you did connect to the internet, it would just be much faster because it doesn't need to go up and down in terms of the information going to the server and coming back. So there are a lot of advantages that seem to be shaping up here nicely for Apple, maybe undeservedly on kind of how much they've really been working on this, or it just seems like it's kind of fallen in their favor, which is cool. But I figure that if they can figure this out at this point, they can move up in the tiers. But let's leave them there for now, down at the legacy tier. And they're right there with Microsoft Edge. So Microsoft Edge launched a version with Copilot baked in a new way in July, so very recent. They're also sitting with the third largest install base if you look at Microsoft Edge historically. So it comes after Chrome and Safari, but it is pretty far behind Safari. But I do actually give them some credit for just shipping the product and getting it out the door for it, and faster than Chrome and Safari have been able to do. Okay, next tier up, we've got the real challengers, and this is really the on the clock tier. So you've got Comet, which is the browser launched by Perplexity, and then you have Dia, which is from the browser company of New York. And I call this on the clock because they really have to move quickly here, given the real position and strength and distribution that's already baked in from all the other players in the space. So let's start with Dia. They launched first. So I kind of suspect in some sense this is really was by necessity for an AI browser. They knew that if Perplexity or OpenAI came out with their browser first, it would probably take a ton of wind out of the sails. So I think smartly prioritized making that happen and being the first to kind of create this AI browser concept of integrating the AI chat and the kind of assistant in a panel who's contextually aware of what is actually going on in what you are seeing in the browser screen, and then can presumably take some actions for you, whether that's research based or eventually purchasing products or doing other things on the web for you in your browser without you having to click everything in it. So Dia in some sense has a laptop class vibes to it. So it kind of has echoes of like Kickstarter, Etsy lineage to it that I kind of get a feel. I've used Dia quite a bit. I think that they have this skills concept, which is nice. But overall, the AI integration on Comet is smoother. So the skills kind of allow you to maybe take shortcuts with certain prompts that you might use. Like, for example, like summarize this page for me. You could just do a kind of slash summary or something like that. And you've pre-baked some of those sorts of skills, and they actually have a marketplace for it, which is an interesting concept for the idea of like social prompting, and that you might have friends or people that you respect or people you might follow on X, let's say, that have certain prompts, and you can kind of just hack into those. So I think there's definitely some creativity, and that's where I kind of saw that lineage of like coming with some Brooklyn creativity. I think they also have a team that's remote or distributed or as well, but like leaning into that. Obviously, the branding of the browser company of New York, they're like leaning into it to some degree or otherwise. And I think that that kind of creates this interesting dynamic to it. I don't know how much that'll really cross over into something that's a little bit more mainstream. I do find like I've used the AI integration on Comet browser more, and it just seems a little bit more of a smoother experience. And I also noticed on Dia, like when I'm browsing their marketplace for skills, one of their highlighted skills that they're featuring was made by one of their lead investors for their Series B. Not horrible, but like kind of struck me as a touch odd, and like maybe something you'd see at a seed stage or pre-seed, an investor, putting themselves on that, or the company not having kind of a better use case to highlight. So anyway, just didn't strike the right tone there. Let's move on to Comet. So Comet by Perplexity. This is my personal favorite right now. I found like it's very helpful for research, for finance, uh, really diving into companies. It can do it very well and can get there pretty easily. So I think that they are trying to update a lot, keep a lot of live data in and focus in on giving you kind of like a really strong research tool. So it does feel a little bit more researchy, a little less creative, although I'm sure that they're kind of thinking about that, whether that's like creating pictures, videos easily, kind of depending on the context of what you're seeing. Frankly, I haven't really explored that piece quite as much, but it doesn't seem to be kind of as obvious to me. I think if I squint a little bit here, there is a chance for this to be kind of like a Bloomberg terminal for those who either can't afford a Bloomberg terminal or don't need chat on a Bloomberg terminal, but can get you like real accurate good information that's totally up to date, that's like pretty well organized, pretty well set, very easy to configure to kind of your workflow and what you want. So I found it pretty easy to get into, and I think the agent is nice. I've occasionally noticed some clunkiness in getting it to kind of really engage, but I found like it's pretty helpful for shopping research. Overall, though, like for both, if I look at this tier, Comet by Perplexity and then Dia by the browser company, like I'm concerned for both of them with it, because it just took them both a long time to push these products out. So it took Dia over a year, around a year, right around 12 months to build this, which is like an eternity, given that that was really the only focus for the company. Um, Perplexity was a little bit better. I think they were able to get the browser out in closer to 5 months. So just by virtue of that, like it would certainly be more optimistic about Perplexity and being able to move quickly on this. I'm not quite sure what took Dia so long to come out with it, but like we'll keep track of whether they were able to do some things fundamentally in their architecture that allow them to move quicker now. I'm not really seeing it. It seems like Perplexity is adding new features just in the same way as Dia is. So we'll see how that plans out. But in both cases, like I'm not blown away by the speed at this point. A little bit more on the kind of updates from Comet. I think we got to watch what happens next with that. Okay, the next tier is the legit challenger tier. So this one is special for OpenAI. They don't even have a browser and they're already on the tiers. Pretty cool. Okay. The browser, which may or may not be nicknamed Aura or named Aura. We don't really know if that's a code name or that's like actually what it's going to be called. Not like the Aura ring, but like Aura, Aura. So anyway, we'll see what comes of that. Look, they've got some big advantages here. They have 700 million active weekly users, so obviously they can get that product out there. But let's also be real, like going to use a site is different than like, wait, I have to download that thing and then install it. Like once we get out into kind of the more normal territory of not tech early adopters, um, it's just like an obstacle. And like, why am I doing that? And like, does Chrome have AI? And there are questions there. So I don't know that it's like such a slam dunk where you just expect, oh, like to the moon instantly, everybody is going to start using that. So we'll see how that plays out. Looking at Polymarket, there's about a 90% chance that this will be rolled out in 2025, so come out at some point later this year. And Polymarket also has this as like a 27% chance that it'll come out in August. So looks like it's coming hopefully we'll get something kind of soon and be able to play with that and start to see how quickly OpenAI is going to pick up steam here. I think the other thing we're really going to be looking at is how much they're going to market it, right? I mean, we kind of have some frame of reference now for the Chat GPT, GPT-5 launch and what exactly that looked like, kind of the level of enthusiasm, some of the mainstream media aspect, and how they were really positioning that. It'll be really interesting to see if this like gets a full-on huge treatment for the browser rolling out, or it's more something that is targeted at early adopters, and then they try to roll it out kind of more progressively over time without as big of a media launch. So I think keenly going to be looking at how that looks, just from the kind of the lead up to the launch itself and like how they present some of the media stuff around it, how quickly they're trying to really deploy that to that 700 million weekly user base. And then the final tier, the top tier. Okay, this is the heavyweight, the undisputed heavyweight. We've got Chrome. Okay, so where are we with Chrome? I mean, they have over 3 billion estimated users there, so just blowing everybody else out of the water. They've got desktop, they've got mobile, they are everywhere. And they're really in control of how they roll Gemini, so their large language model and AI into the browser, right? They have everything at their disposal to kind of work with. And so while that might mean more meetings and more discussion and more strategy kind of at Google to figure out how all this comes together, you're talking fundamentally about people that have a lot of tools laid out on the table, and it's kind of a matter of how to put them all together. So I think that could be a challenge here of just like what could knock them off is like, it's just the fact that Google has this multitude of priorities and different moving parts, and maybe some of that gets in the way here. But on the other hand, it could also really set up some pretty sick like YouTube, Chrome, Gmail mix-ins and kind of how it's all together, right? So you're watching a YouTube video and there's some interesting stuff that's happening, and they're able to deliver that even faster than everybody because like they know everything about YouTube and whatnot. So we'll see how some of that comes together. But I'm really excited to see them. But I think pretty clearly now, like they are top of the heap and in a good position here. They really don't need to move first, but they do need to move last. And so we'll see you on the next one.